So, the UK release of Spectre, the 24th Bond film, is happening pretty much right now. Well, it's not right now, because I think the earliest screenings are like late at night. Hence why I'm being able to film this video, because I'm going to see it in a few hours. No doubt the review will be on, I'll probably mention it on the podcast after Raw on the 26th, if you're watching this on archive somehow, to just look for that podcast. I'll probably do some dots there. I'll give a more full review on my Sticks and Flicks podcast on the SNS Radio Network. But, considering this is the Gaming with Ash section, I felt it's interesting to look back at the history of Bond in video games, because to me, I only know the modern stuff, but looking back to the old stuff, perhaps there's a reason why I forgot the old stuff. So, it actually started back as far back as 83, when James Bond 007 came out for the Atari 2600, and quite a few other consoles, but mainly 2600 was the major one, and it was sort of a best of, where I think there was 3 or 4 missions, and they were based off a few movies. Probably Roger Moore ones. Oh no, there was a Diamonds Are Forever one. Okay. Spy Who Loved Me, For Your Eyes Only, Moonraker, you know. Just a simple thing, because obviously you're on a very basic console. Then you had, little did I know, you actually had video game tie-ins as far back as 85. There was a View to a Kill tie-in, which I'm guessing that must have been, yeah, ZX Spectrum. Basically developed by British developers, from what I can tell. There were also text adventures. Yeah, because Bond is a text adventure. Whatever. You had Living Daylights and License to Kill as well, during the time of the actual movies, on the years of 85, 87 and 89. But then between, you had Live and Let Die, you had Goldfinger, Spy Who Loved Me. The weird one, which it was called Operation Stealth everywhere else in the world, but in America, they changed it to James Bond, The Stealth Affair, where James Bond was apparently getting orders from the CIA. Take it as you will. Then probably the next one that a lot of old players will probably recognise is, there was a James Bond Jr. one, which came out for the NES and Super Nintendo, which was sort of okay, but you know, really nothing to call home about. And there was also called I think it was called The Duel, which came out for Sega systems. I think it was exclusively for Sega systems, so that probably would have been the only game that came out just for the Sega. Thinking about it. So then, that was 93. There was nothing until 97. And of course, that year is significant. Because, okay, and this was a trend actually for quite a few of the Bond games here that tied into movies. They came out 2 years later. But because of that, you had some bloody good games. I mean, do I really need to say anything about GoldenEye 007 on the N64? It stands up still to this day as probably one of the best first-person shooters that is out there. Even what? Just trying to see if I've got a release date for this. I'm guessing it was sometime in the fall. Good old Dave Doak. No, it was actually end of August 97. So we are legit talking 18 years on. 18 years on, it still stands up in terms of first-person shooters with your Call of Duties, your Battlefields and whatever. If anything, what GoldenEye did wouldn't have led to Call of Duty or Battlefield being a thing. Because it really sort of did... increase the visibility of first-person shooters. Admittedly, there was been a lot on PC, like Quake and Unreal and all that, but on consoles, there was very little of it. And the fact of the matter is, you did get quite a lot of it happening then from then on, because I think Medal of Honor was 98, the very first Medal of Honor game, so it would sort of fit. So that was understandably a big success, because, you know, it was. Then there was a weird Game Boy game, James Bond 007, which apparently came out in 98, which I've sort of played a bit of via emulation, and yeah, it's not really a Bond game. The next one, in 99, Tomorrow Never Dies, which has a lot of interesting tidbits, really, in that the ending theme for the game was the scrapped theme for the movie. Because K.D. Lang did a version of Tomorrow Never Dies, and in actual fact, you know, it did get used at the end of the game, and when you hear it, it sort of is like, that should have been sort of a secondary. I think it was at the end of the film as well, from what I remember, but it's pretty damn good. The key thing with GoldenEye is it pretty much did closely follow the plot with a few alterations, which is what kept it fresh, because obviously it was 2 years after the film came out. It was that sort of deal. Tomorrow Never Dies somewhat did the same, because there was like a weird thing, like the very first mission was sort of the follow-up to the pre-title sequence in the film, where having to destroy some sort of basically some big satellite dish or whatever. And then, of course, the best bit in that mission is you had a skiing bit at the end, and when he went off they basically ripped off Spy Who Loved Me, because when he went off the hill, the Union Jack came out of the parachute, so basically like that. So then you had the mission, which was in the thing, you know, destroying the stuff with the going to the arms bazaar and destroying everything. Then you went to Hamburg, Germany, which was a little bit different because you got basically kidnapped, and then you had to use your laser cufflinks and then get out. Then you also had... Oh, I'm trying to think. I think it then went straight to sort of the hotel, and you had your first mini boss in Kaufman. Then, yeah, it was. Then there was like a car section bit, but it was also on foot, so it was 2 in 1, which is a bit weird. Then it went sort of nowhere relevant to anything in the movie. There was just a random mission, which was just like, you put this in for filler's sake, didn't you? Case in point, he randomly he skis in to, I think, did he ski in? No, I don't think he did. Basically, he was in Hokkaido, Japan, to basically, it was one of the side things that it was a blink and you miss it in the film. Basically, this chemical expert basically created a nerve gas attack. It was on one of the headlines. They literally took one of the headlines and made it into a level, which then became another mini boss. And then you get to the end bit with the stuff in Saigon, and then the stealth boat bit at the end, and then you have not one but 2 mini bosses. Because apparently, Jonathan Pryce's Elliot Carver character takes a lot of bullets, which is just like the movie. Despite that, it was, I mean, okay. And it was interesting that you did actually... There was one mission where you actually played as Wei Ling, Michelle Yeoh's character, rather than Bond. Because I think Bond was captured or whatever, and they needed her to do it. I can't remember exactly, but it was a good game. Nowhere near as good as GoldenEye, but something I didn't know actually until apparently it was at a convention this past weekend. Rare were given the offer to do Tomorrow Never Dies, and they turned it down. Who knows what would have happened if they hadn't? But interesting, perhaps, you know, they wouldn't have made Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. And again, they might not have made Banjo-Kazooie, so... Oh, that's annoying. For nuts and bolts, it's worth trying to rescue, but whatever. So then the following year, again following on the path of after the films come out, came The World Is Not Enough, which Tomorrow Never Dies went to third person. It went back to first person for this, and there was... It sort of was trying to be similar to GoldenEye, but it wasn't as really good. I mean, it was okay, admittedly. It pretty much followed the path of the movies and everything. Not entirely sort of accurate, but it did have the full motion video cutscenes at the start and at the end of a level. At least for the PS1 version. That was, you know, I actually, you know, enjoyed it. I will say, they did a pretty good job, but it still isn't, you know, a top-notch game. It was still nothing compared to GoldenEye. And then, of course, they decided to do 007 Racing, which, just as a concept, if you're racing the cars from, like, all the old games, it makes sense. But trying to create, like, a weird single-player sort of mission involving just car stuff, I think the polite answer is no. So then we got to the I guess it would have been 6th generation of consoles. I think that's right. But either way, we got to PS2, Xbox, and GameCube days, and we got Agent Under Fire, which was not too bad a game. I guess the good thing is that it felt like a Bond film, but was obviously an original story, which obviously was going to be a trend to go for most of the upcoming games. You know, it had a nice story, nothing special. The problem is it didn't even have, I don't think it even had, it wasn't really a Brosnan true liking. Really. Even on the front cover, his face was obscured, so... Actually, I don't even know if I think you do see his face, but whatever it is. You know, it was okay, nothing really exceptional. Then the likeness all of a sudden came back. 007 Nightfire, which I guess was, in essence, it really sort of came in or around the same time that Die Another Day came out. So they were running on that stuff. Again, it's a good story. Well, it's an interesting story. Good is the right. It was a good story. Well, decent story. I keep saying it was okay. It was an okay story, but again, it felt like what it had to, and that is a Bond game. I don't think it was trying to go for anything other than being a Bond game, which is sort of what I had to do. Then, it sort of gets a little bit more confusing, because we then need to bring up actually one of the best bits, which was, well, I guess I'll stick with the actual proper stuff, because I think it was 2000. There was a few games in between. You know, I'm trying to disguise the fact that for some reason I can't bring it up on my computer right now. Oh wait, perhaps I can. No, but following that was the sort of really weird one, because it was trying way too hard to be canon. Actually, it was the next game, as it turned out, 2004. I wasn't even sure of that. So, it was Everything or Nothing. So the confusing thing about that, it had real people in it. And by real people, I don't mean, Vladimir Putin or all that sort of stuff. I mean, the actual Hollywood actors their likenesses were in the game, their voices were used in the game, and the major issue was basically, as I say, it tried to basically somehow tie into the canonicity of the Bond films. How, you ask? Well, blimey. So, Jaws is in this game as the henchman. Yeah. The guy who you thought died up in space. I guess he didn't die. What? I'm confused. So, God. You had Mia or Maya in it, basically just as a cameo. Shannon Elizabeth was in it as basically the guy he screwed, the girl he screwed, at the end. Heidi Klum you had as the love interest that turned bad, because apparently that was a trend in a lot of the Bond stuff at that point. The femme fatale sort of character. And then Willem Dafoe, which, I applaud his work, but the problem and the good and the good thing and the bad thing about it is his character Nikolai Dyatlov was basically mentored by Max Zorin, as in Christopher Walken. Which, considering Walken and Dafoe sort of personas on film, makes sense, because they are crazy sons of bitches. But it's just, it was very weird, and the fact that Mia sung the theme, give me everything or nothing, and that basically everything was crap. I applaud what it was trying to do, and it is sort of it's sort of nice. Some of the stuff of the gaming, it was just, I don't know. It just really didn't feel right. Some of the stuff, it just didn't work properly in terms of gameplay. I know some people had copies that it was basically bugged, sorry, and you know, it's interesting, but also not interesting. It's good, but it really hasn't. Unlike the classic Bond films, you can't forgive it because it was 10 years ago. Or 11 years ago, whatever. You can't really forgive it as much. The thing is, that following year saw a game that I actually enjoyed. Although I know a lot don't because of what it did and butchering the name. But GoldenEye Rogue Agent. So, I mean, to me, I always saw GoldenEye Rogue Agent as basically you playing as Alec Trevelyan from the original GoldenEye game, but in some sort of weird parallel universe, because basically at the start of the game, at the start of the game, you have them trying to take out Dr. No, MI6, and oh, I see. Yeah, 3 years ago, the agent was severely wounded in an encounter with Dr. No and lost the use of his right eye. So 3 years after that, they're going, evaluated through a holographic simulation. Oh, I didn't even know that. I never kept track of that. I just thought it was, I'm disappointed now. So basically they did a holographic simulation to stop Goldfinger inside Fort Knox. So sort of recreating the Goldfinger bit. But fails because basically he kills off 007. So basically he's dismissed. And he's obviously pissed that he's been dismissed. So he's recruited by Goldfinger into his organization, and then you've got Goldfinger, you've got Dr. No, and most notably, because it's Christopher Walken, Scaramanga. Yeah, that's the really important bit, to be quite honest. There's also a random bit when Zinnia Onatop randomly shows up. Then also Oddjob randomly tries to attack you and you basically destroy him. Because the idea is that they want to take... Goldfinger wants to take out Dr. No because there's only one big person in their deal. But then once that's done, basically the idea is now Goldfinger sees him as a threat and wants him dead as well. And then Pussy Galore gets involved. We've got a level based in the underwater Crab Key thing, you know, from Spy Who Loved Me. And even Blofeld shows up at the end, which sort of teased towards a sequel. But, I mean, thankfully, you know, nothing happened. In all honesty. But the important thing is, you know, Christopher Lee is in it. That's all that matters to me, really. It never actually happened, though. Basically due to the reviews being not that good. And the sale was not really being that good. I certainly enjoy it. The problem is, because it's got the 007 sort of license around it, even though it's GoldenEye, and also because of the GoldenEye thing, it sort of is a bit skewing the thing. It just isn't as good. So in 2005 was the unofficial, well, I guess the unofficial game, which is GoldenEye Source. So it went first live like late 2005 in its alpha, but I think the last version came out in 2012. I think it's just listed here as version 4.2.4. Obviously as a mod for Half-Life, because it's GoldenEye Source, and it's had a lot of acclaim. Obviously you can't really review it properly because it's not really a full game, but it's just really the multiplayer stuff, really. But it's still the closest thing that you're going to be able to be playing a good GoldenEye game that isn't on the N64, because we'll get to that. But that same year also came from Russia with Love, which again was pretty confusing, because it was cool. It was an old school style game. It was based on the From Russia with Love film, but the problem is you obviously couldn't stay too close to the film because there would have been a lot of boring things. I mean, admittedly, you had the jetpack, which wasn't Thunderball, but it was in around the same time. You obviously had the Aston Martin be involved, but then you had the crazy sort of driving in a fancy car underworld stuff. It was sort of weird. I mean, due to legal reasons, ironically, there couldn't be any Spectre in it, so it changed to Octopus. But there was a pre-title sequence with the daughter of the UK Prime Minister being kidnapped, with Bond rescuing her. But I guess the big deal here is Sean Connery's likeness was in it, and his voice. Except with the voice, the problem is his voice was 70-year-old Sean Connery. It sort of doesn't work. You had the main villains of the piece and whatever, and the characters. You had M, you had Q, Moneypenny, Romanova, Red Grant, Karen Bay, Kirilenko. You had all that. But then you had Elizabeth Stark, which was Natasha Bedingfield, again brought in basically because she did a song on the game, I believe, which was like, and also Maria Menounos, who was sort of a female villain. And it was just really, it's a good game, but the problem tarnishes the legacy of the movie. That's the problem. It's a fun game. I will give it that. But the problem is, I hold the movie in such high regard that some of the things that they do with the story, it really is a case of I don't like what they did, but I still enjoyed the game because it was sort of a throwback to the old style Bond and not your modern stuff, which going on the quality of Agent Under Fire and Nightfire and somewhat everything on. I think it was a bit different. Then we had the Quantum of Solace game. There was no Casino Royale game. I think it was one of the various Bond games that never happened and got cancelled. So it was a third-person shooter on the console that I've played it on, which is PS2, but actually was first-person shooter on your next-gen, your PC, your PS3, your 360s, and your Wii. And it's not too bad. It's somewhat true to the game, but obviously because because that movie is so short, you obviously can't. You've got to add stuff in, otherwise it's not gonna make sense at all. But it was okay. Nothing. To be honest, I actually did enjoy, from what I saw, I enjoyed the last gen version from what I've seen of the next gen version, which is ironic. Then it goes then we really start going downhill. So Double I 007 then came out in 2010 for the Wii, which was a modern reimagining of GoldenEye, which of course meant Daniel Craig is in it. And the confusing thing is, it's supposed to be set after Quantum of Solace. So it's just, who knows? I mean, I appreciate what they were trying to do, but no. Then of course you eventually came round to PS3 and 360 with the GoldenEye Reloaded or whatever it was, and it's good as a game, but the problem is, because it has the GoldenEye name, it's sort of tarnishing. Well, no, I can't say it's even tarnishing the legacy. It's just not GoldenEye sort of thing. In essence, it's similar to the Rogue Agent thing. So then we had, I guess, what was your final original James Bond game, which was Bloodstone. And this, again, was actually trying to follow on story-wise from Quantum of Solace. Except this time not be as stupid as the GoldenEye thing. Because obviously it's the original story. I think, Joss Stone was in it. I think she was the woman that you had to rescue at the end. She was the... Okay. That's interesting. Perhaps not. Oh, I see. So, wow, I didn't even know this. So basically, she's rescued at the end, but then a drone shoots her dead. And, it basically was... It was there as a cliffhanger, and it was like... Nothing happened to it. I now want to play that, because that just seems intriguing. That they left it so open-ended, and of course nothing came from it, because basically nobody bought it. Hang on, please tell me it came out on PC. It didn't. Oh, it did. Good, I'm going to have to try and track that down on Amazon. And then, I guess what you have to say, the final nail in the coffin, because it really sort of was. For the 50th anniversary, we got 007 Legends, which got delayed and delayed and delayed, which was probably a sign. So the key thing with this was... Basically, it was set after the opening of Skyfall, and when he's shot and left for dead, and basically, as he's recovering, he begins to sort of reminisce about his previous adventures, and literally sort of going in canon or... The confusing thing is, this is happening despite the fact we know that this is all... Everything from Casino Royale onwards has been the retcon of everything that's happened before. Supposedly. The other issue being, you can't obviously have Sean Connery in the Goldfinger missions. You have to have Daniel Craig. So it does get a little bit confusing there. That you have the even that you have the sort of the voices of Tanner and M, which were never around then, but somehow are. You had the mission from I think the Goldfinger one was mainly the Fort Knox stuff, the Operation Grand Slam stuff. Then you had the assault on Piz Gloria from on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I still love that film to this day. I really think it's underrated. Then you had, I think from what I can tell, the order was so it was Fran Sanchez and the License to Kill, and you had that involved. Then Die Another Day, which actually had Toby Stevens do what I don't think anybody else did in... Oh no, somebody else did in the game. Which was reprise the voice role as well for the thing. And then finally, I think it was Moonraker. The space assault with Michael Lonsdale actually reprising his voice role of Drax. I don't know. So it was sort of, imagine, thought-wise, it's like, this is actually awesome, playing through, the classic scene from Goldfinger, the classic scene from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the classic scene from Moonraker, the somewhat classic from License to Kill, which was a bit different, and then to some extent Die Another Day. I don't think it was the plane, but I think it was just the bit in the ice. I can't remember, but either way, wasn't good. And then we had, basically, following on from that as DLC, because it's DLC. We had here the bit that you see in the movie, reimagined the bit in Shanghai when he's stopping the assassination plot by I'm trying to get the character's name, Patrice. Trying to stop Patrice from killing the Chinese people, and then the confusing thing is, all those reminiscences of Skyfall have supposedly happened between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall. Because, that honestly happened 6 years between them. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think if it was 6 years. I don't know whether they've retconned. I don't even know. They were 4 years apart in film-wise, so how could it be 6? Who knows? I'm confused. So is everybody. Either way, basically, all we need to say is 007 Legends was so badly received and so bad that Activision basically dropped, or they basically said they were moving away from licensed games. Which is weird, because why did Amazing Spider-Man 2 come out? Either way, it was it's unclear whether they stopped doing the Bond games because they didn't give a damn, or more likely, the people behind Bond, Dan Jack and all that, were basically going, look, if you aren't going to put in effort, we won't give you the license. And the fact of the matter is, other than the sort of tablet game, World of Espionage, that came out recently, which is okay, but nothing exceptional. As a mobile game, we haven't seen, and to be quite honest, I don't think we're going to be seeing it either. The likelihood is it's going to be a no. If I can say it like that. Which is a shame, but also makes sense. So yeah, I doubt we're sort of getting the Spectre game inside this mobile game thing, but either way. You know, there's been a lot of highs and quite a lot more lows, but I think the moral of the story here is just play GoldenEye on the N64. I think that's all we need to do.